Have you ever just stopped and wondered about, well, thinking itself? I mean, how does an idea, something that has no weight, no size, you can't point to it, connect with that squishy 3-pound lump of tissue inside your skull? This, right here, is the mind-body problem. It's one of the oldest and deepest puzzles out there, and today we're going to dive into one of its most fascinating and, frankly, weirdest proposed solutions.
So on the surface, it seems pretty straightforward, right? You feel hungry, that's a mental thing, and your hand reaches for an apple, that's a physical thing. But what's the bridge? What connects the two? How does the invisible world of your consciousness actually tell the physical world of your body what to do? That is the absolute core of the mystery we're unpacking.
All right, so when you look at how people have tried to solve this, you basically end up with two main camps. First, you've got inter-actionism. This is the one that probably feels most natural to you. It says your mind and your body are constantly talking to each other. They directly cause things to happen in one another. But then there's this other, much more radical idea called parallelism. And this one sounds like it's straight out of science fiction.
And it's this really strange and fascinating idea, parallelism, that we're going to focus on. You see, instead of getting bogged down in how something non-physical could possibly push around something physical, parallelism just sidesteps the whole problem. It suggests they don't interact at all. It's like we're living in two perfectly synchronized but totally separate realities at the same time.
So, what is psychophysical parallelism exactly? Well, the core idea is this. For every single mental event you have, every thought, every feeling, every little sensation, there is a matching physical event happening in your brain. They run in perfect lockstep, like two clocks that were set to the exact same time. But, and this is the key, one doesn't cause the other. They're just parallel, forever.
The best way to picture this is with an analogy. Imagine two railway tracks running side by side, stretching out to the horizon. On one track, you've got the train of your mental life, all your thoughts and feelings. On the other track, you have the train of what's physically happening in your brain, all the neurons firing. According to parallelism, these two trains left the station at the exact same time, and they're traveling at the exact same speed. When one train passes a tree, the other one does too, at the very same instant. They are perfectly in sync, but they never ever touch. One is not pushing or pulling the other. And that really gets to the heart of it. When you have the mental desire for coffee, that thought is perfectly matched by some specific pattern of activity in your brain. When you hear a loud noise, the physical event in your ear is perfectly matched by the mental feeling of being startled. One doesn't cause the other. They just happen together. Every single time. It's a really clean, tidy solution because it gets you out of having to answer that impossible question of how a thought could ever move a neuron.
It's a pretty elegant idea, right? No messy interactions, just this kind of pre-established harmony between mind and matter. It's all very neat. But here's the million-dollar question. Does this beautifully simple theory actually survive when it comes up against the messy, complicated reality of our own minds? Let's start poking some holes in it and see what happens.
So the very first big problem is really a numbers game. Let's call it the mismatch, because the theory demands this perfect one-to-one match between a thought and a brain event. But critics say, hold on a minute. The sheer richness and complexity of our mental life just blows the known complexity of our brain out of the water.
And this quote from the philosopher G.F. Stout really nails it. Now, that's a bit of a mouthful, but what he's basically saying is that our conscious experience is just too complicated, too full of subtle meanings and connections for every single bit of it to have its own little neural counterpart. Simply put, the world of your mind is just way richer than the world of your brain. Let's make this real. Just think about the word king. When you hear that word, it's not just one little piece of data. Your mind just explodes with connections, right? Queen, royalty, power, chess, a deck of cards, history, maybe even Martin Luther King Jr. It's this huge, boundless web of associations. Now, parallelism has to claim that that entire unique, personal web of meaning has a specific, corresponding pattern of neurons just happening to run alongside it. Does that really seem plausible? That for every tiny little connection your mind makes, there's a distinct physical event just coincidentally happening? It just doesn't seem to add up.
Okay, on to the second major problem, and this one gets a little deeper. It's about the very nature of you. We don't experience the world as a bunch of separate little dots of information. We experience it as one single, unified whole. We experience it as an I.
This quote says it all. Your brain is a physical thing. You can divide it. It has a left half and a right half. It's made of billions of separate neurons. But your consciousness, your sense of self, it doesn't feel like that at all. You can't split your awareness into two smaller awarenesses. It is, like the quote says, indivisible. So how can a thing made of billions of separate parts run in perfect parallel with an experience that feels completely singular?
And here's a perfect example of that. When you look at the color purple and the color blue and think about how they relate, you don't have a separate purple experience and a separate blue experience that some manager in your brain stitches together. No, it's what the source calls a single act. It's one unified moment of awareness where you see both colors, their similarities, their differences, all at once. This unity of consciousness just doesn't seem to have a parallel in a world of separate brain cells firing in different places.
And now we come to the third, and maybe the most crushing, blow to parallelism. It has absolutely no room for things like meaning, intention, or purpose. It describes a world of perfectly timed events, but it can't explain the why behind any of them. It's a world where nothing has a goal.
So think about a purely abstract idea, like the square root of -1, okay? This isn't a physical thing. You can't touch it. It's pure meaning. Parallelism would have us believe that there's some physical process in your brain that just happens to run alongside your understanding of that concept. But what would that even look like? A neuron can't mean a mathematical idea. Two rocks can be next to each other, but they can't mean each other. It just doesn't compute.
Let's bring this down to earth. Think about a toddler learning to walk. This isn't just a random series of muscle twitches that happens to correspond to a series of random thoughts. No, there is a goal, an intention. The child wants to walk. And that non-physical purpose is the controlling factor that guides the whole thing. It's what helps the child keep the movements that work and get rid of the thousands of clumsy movements that don't. A system of two parallel tracks with no connection has no way to explain this kind of goal-oriented learning.
So, after all that, where are we? We started with this really neat and tidy idea that promised to solve the mind-body problem. Two perfect parallel tracks. But the more we look at it, the more those tracks seem to wobble and veer apart. They just can't seem to hold the weight of reality. So, it's time for the verdict.
Let's just quickly recap the case against it. First, you've got the complexity mismatch. Our thoughts are just way too rich and interconnected for a simple one-to-one physical map. Second, the unified self. Our consciousness is experienced as a single, whole thing, not a bundle of parts, like the brain. And third, and this is a big one, no room for meaning. The theory just can't explain purpose, goals, or abstract ideas.
And this final judgment, quoting the philosopher A.E. Talver, is just devastating. He says that to treat parallelism as the actual truth isn't just a mistake, it's a flagrant breach of logic. Why? Because it asks you to believe in an infinite number of cosmic coincidences. That every time you think of your dog, brain state X just happens to occur, for no reason at all. And it's been doing that perfectly forever. Logically, that is a really, really tough pill to swallow.
So look, psychophysical parallelism was a brilliant, fascinating attempt to solve this epic puzzle. But in the end, it seems to create an even bigger mystery than the one it tried to solve. And this isn't just some dusty old debate. Neuroscientists today are searching for the neural correlates of consciousness, and AI researchers are trying to build machines that don't just compute, but actually understand. They're all running into these exact same problems. Which leaves us with a final, lingering thought. If our mind and brain aren't running in parallel, then what is their relationship? Are they on a collision course? It seems we're right back where we started, asking the biggest question of all, what even are we?